this is the tambour door, which is way bigger than I need it to be. Bought it from Magnum Motorhomes. For the two rails that you get, one's got a ridge at the bottom and one's quite deeper in the profile. So I'm going to put this one's the top one, so it can hide a little bit of the undulations. That's my thought on that one. And this one, because of that ridge in the middle, yeah, so because it's got that ridge in the middle and the sides are much smaller, I'm going to say that is for the bottom. And then you get this bit, which looks like the handle. And then on one side is the magnet. So I'm going to guess that this bit here must clip into one of these somehow, one end of it. But the biggest thing is obviously all of that then needs cutting down. I can see this tambour door thing taking a day or two right now. I've been in touch with Stu from the Rolling Rocks because they fitted one on their toilet, and we saw their new van recently, and I'm like, that might be the solution for me rather than messing around with doors and everything else. And it looks pretty cool. So I've asked him how he cut his tambour door down, and he said it was with the plunge saw, the track saw, really slowly. So yeah, lots of measuring to do and head scratching, and I'll probably show you when I'm done what it looks like. Right, my poo palace is finished. So got all the front all sorted out, all realigned and everything. All right, I'll say finished. Yeah, I do need to put a strip of grey to finish off the leading edge of that one, and the bottom actually as well. But my tambour door is in. Oh yeah, look at that. Tambour door. So that's why I went with the grey with this, to match the kind of silver of the tambour door, rather than having it green. I'll probably do this leading edge grey as well, so it all matches in grey. So yeah, that took some doing, in all fairness. We're quite pleased with that one. Oh yeah. And then on the inside, made myself a little batten for the edge there, wrapped it in the same stuff as this. Yes, it's different orientation, wood grain, but you know, I'm not bothered. Then mounted the magnet strip, which is really, really strong, and that goes like that. It's really strong, keeps the door nice and closed. Made the track across the top. That was a bit iffy because my van is all sorts of weird different angles and everything else, but that's finally in and it looks fine. Track on the floor, that obviously goes down there, and then that just kind of yeah, nips behind my bin. I do need to box in the heating at some stage as well, but like I say, I need to put in cupboards and that as well. Speaking of cupboards, obviously because the track runs that way, I'll probably on that side just have a gap as the cupboard comes down. Might even use it as a little cubbyhole or something like that. But yeah, need to make sure I can open and close my door, obviously. I just do like that. Oh, hello, YouTuber.
I was just saying how absurd it is having two people recording for YouTube, and I'm just walking around and all of a sudden just hear you gabbing to yourself while sat on the toilet.
Yeah, I am sat on my toilet.
Yeah.
I've got my pants up though.
Let's just double check that. Okay.
All right, go on, privacy. Privacy.
Looks lovely.
Thank you.
Yay.
Bye. YouTubers, bloody everywhere, aren't they? But yeah, quite pleased with this. Obviously I need to sort out the light, which I'm going to do when I do my cupboard, because I'll probably have two little downlighters at the bottom of the cupboard, and that's the way I'll light this up. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. That took some head scratching because, again, making a box in a shape of a van where not only there's the floor dip, but the ceiling dips, the sides dip, and they've all got their own angles, provided some challenges, shall we say. These are my little pocket hole things. Remember when I was doing the vinyl wrap? These are the little slashes I made for my pocket holes. So that's how I've attached everything using pocket holes so it's all nicely attached everywhere. And what I'll do is I'll just get some vinyl, just little strips of vinyl. I will go in the right grain this time. And yeah, just cover those up just for neatness. But I'm chuffed. I think it looks all right. So yeah, poo pallet's done, which means now we move on to the seating area. So yeah, now I've got to rip all this out and just make it more simply out of 18mm ply. Sort of box section it for storage and incorporate either drawers or sort of like pull out fronts or pull down fronts, just so it's easier for storage and access. So that's my old seat base ripped out, and I'm currently redoing the ducting for the heating. As quite a few people rightly said, having that pretty much straight in front of there and then a short duct into the inside of the van probably meant that a lot of that heat was being bounced straight into the diverter and then straight into a bit of a bend like that. So it could potentially have caused some back pressure of the air. So I'm going to connect that to there, and then just before it goes into the toilet, I'm going to put the Y piece there. So I get half into the toilet and then half is going to run to the edge there when I'm going to put, obviously as I build the new base, I'm going to put a heater outlet there. So it's just going to heat kind of the same area of the van. Obviously without that one there, then chances are the fridge and freezer won't get hot at the front, so that might help them. Those are exhaust outlets for the fridge and the freezer, so air only comes out of there, so it's not like it's going to be sucking in warm air. So yeah, hopefully that will resolve that little bit of a problem. Obviously I'll feed back and let you know as and when things are noticeably different. I'm just taking this opportunity while I've got no bench seat in there to go through all the cabling again. I'm adding 2 new cables just for future proofing. So I've just been pulling those through, so I've actually taken the toilet out again to pull the cables through and yeah, pull them all the way down to the back there. So I'm going to sort those out in a minute, but I also do need to sort out not only the boxing in there but the heater duct. So while the toilet's out, I'll sort that out as well now. Pretty much got most of that built, in all fairness. I need to wrap the front part of it, which is on the bench at the moment. And once I've wrapped the front part, I can then put it all together and then make the lids for it. I'm going to have drop-in lids, so all the storage is going to be sort of sectional drop-in lids, and the first section pretty much comes to there, then another section there, and then like I say, that's going to come off for sockets, heater outlet, and then sort of level that off at the bottom to give me, it'll be a nice space anyway nonetheless. But yeah, the bench seat version 2.0 is going to be a bit sturdier, a bit more stable, and hopefully a bit easier to access the storage and everything inside. Just having a bit of a moment. Actually shaky, shivery right now, got goosebumps. So I took the toilet out to lay some more cables, and as I was pulling the cables through, I noticed some burn marks on the floor. And looking at it more closely, the only cable that was touching the floor in that spot was the DC to DC, B2B, whatever you want to call it, charge cable for the EcoFlow power kit. But the cable's braided, so it's a one-piece cable. I've not done anything with this cable. It came pre-made, all the ends are on it and everything. I've literally connected one end to the EcoFlow power kit distribution panel and the other end to my starter battery via a maxi fuse. So I've not had anything to do with this cable, and like I say, it's braided on the outside, so I've had to cut back the braiding in the area that was hot. And yeah, I can't fucking believe it, sorry for my language, but they've sent a cable with a join in it. Not only that, it's the negative cable that's got a join in it, I can tell, you know, that someone's been quite happy about them, proud of the work, because they've bloody heat shrunk the join, which has meant that the throughput of power has found a weak spot that's got hot, because it hasn't allowed all the flow of electricity to pass up and down as it should, and that has melted the heat shrink, and has also melted into the positive cable sat right next to it, which has then obviously burnt the floor. So yeah, it's quite bad really, folks. It's not even soldered or butt connected or anything. It just looks like they've wrapped one cable around another one, and then taped it, and then put the heat shrink around it. And then if you look down there, you can see then that some of the core of the cable isn't even going through. So they've just wrapped one end around the center of the other one. That's fucking shocking. That's really, really, really shocking. Somebody has obviously made an error. They're short, and literally it is short by maybe a meter and a half. So what they've decided to do is, rather than waste that black cable, is just join it up. And they've basically twisted one cable around the other one. And because obviously that would have made it fatter and just not as nice, they've actually chopped out some of the braid, some of the cable from each side to reduce its thickness, so that when they do that, there's some of the cable from one end is then just disappearing at that end of the cable. So you've only got half of the cable actually being wrapped around half of the cable at the other end. And what that means, sorry to go on about this, but what this means is, if you've got a 3-lane motorway and all 3 lanes are in use in rush hour, traffic's flowing thereabouts, what's happening here is one lane's got a red X over it, or a vehicle broke down, for example, so nothing can flow, and everything's trying to squeeze down into the 2 lanes that are left, and everyone gets uptight and agitated, and there's a bit of friction there, and that essentially is what's happening to the electrons, the power going through this cable. They're getting to the end of this cable. Well, it's not the end, but they're getting to the connection, the bad connection of this cable, and they're going, whoa, hang on a minute, I can't travel down my full cable. I've got to travel down this little bit that's left, and then I've got to try and make contact with this other little bit on the other side, and then pass on the other side. So yeah, ultimately that's why it's got hot. Ideally, if this was a standard electrical system, I'd just replace the cable. But the problem I've got is it's got proprietary ends on the cable. Smoking diesel heaters last week, and now the freaking melting power cables. This van is really fighting me. I've said that from the start, haven't I? Even when I started with a crappy cut in the door for the window. But yeah, I am feeling like this van's fighting me every step of the way. I've just been thinking, like, why some of you probably sat there going, oh, what's the big deal? It's just a wire that's burnt or something. So incandescent lights is a wire in the middle of the bulb, and like I say, if you get a hold of a light that's been on for an hour, it's hot, isn't it? Burn your hand, and it's that wire inside. Some of you may have used the kind of wire thing as well for cutting plastics in school, or polystyrene. So it's a really hot wire, much like an element in an oven, that kind of thing. It's basically a short against the positive and negative of the electrical supply. Now, fortunately for me, whenever I install high amp cables at great lengths through a chassis of the van, I put a fuse on either end. So if the cable was to short or anything happens in the middle, it would just simply blow the fuse at its basically starting point, which is my starter battery. But if I'd have just used the cable they provided and just bolted it back into the starter battery connections without using a fuse, essentially I'd have a fuse wire going through my van. If that wire would have carried on getting hot and melted together with the red wire sheath would have, just kind of melted away. So the two wires would have been shorted out. I'd have essentially like a bulb throughout my van. I would have a very, very hot cable, a shorted out, very hot cable, pretty much through my van. Where that was pretty much in the middle of my van. Like I say, not an easy place to get to either. So underneath my sofa, my driver's seat, across the floor to the passenger seat, I would have a cable short that would get hot, 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 and then it would melt its own sheathing, which would then mean that it would start melting whatever it was coming into contact with, whether that's wood, plastic, or fabric. Yeah, that could have been a fire. That's how electrical fires start. And yeah, I think that warrants me making a big deal out of this. Not being funny, but it's a hell of a lot of money that I spent on this kit. £4,500. That set me back a bit, that has. Just for the fact of what ifs. Yeah, I'm sure you're bored of me waffling about this now, folks, but it is what it is. I think electrical safety is really important. Like really, really, really important. And it's worth spending, well, what has it been now? It's now 3 o'clock, started at 8 o'clock this morning, and I found that about 10:15. So half of my day checking everything over again, pulling all the cables out, checking every bit of the cable everywhere I could find it, pulling things through, pulling them back the other way, because there's got enough slack at one end I could test it. The fan noise you can hear now is the fact that I've drained all the system down. I've literally caned every socket, every cable, put load tests on all the cable, resistance load testing. So I've drained all the batteries just doing all that for the last couple of hours. So I'm happy now that every other cable would appear to be perfectly okay. Obviously I'll fill you in on any feedback from EcoFlow. So far, all I've got is a customer representative saying, thanks very much for the information. Like I say, asking me about what appliances I was running and that. So it's not the best kind of response so far, but that person obviously isn't an engineer or aware of electrical stuff. So they're just a customer services engineer or representative, sorry. Right, I'm going to start waffling now. I'm going to finish off doing my sofa. It's nearly done. I just need to put the tops on. How does the new sofa feel?
Sofa.
I've made it 10 centimeters deeper in the base. That's where the cushion no longer fits. Obviously covered that. That bit I need to make some sort of cover for, just to fill in there, just over the heater. Yeah, and then I've got easy access to that bit and easy access to this bit. Just pull-ups. Should feel a little bit more.
It feels sturdier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels more comfortable, definitely. Before it felt like I was perched a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas now it feels like it's a proper sofa cushion length, width under my legs.
Cool.
So yeah.
So this is pretty much the end of the refit. From this point on, it's creating new things that have never otherwise been created, like top lockers. So we've got a top locker that's going across here, which is this above the seating area, and it's roughly going around this height. Obviously I'm going to have a play around, see what feels comfortable with things hanging over your head and how far they stick out, etc. We've then got one that's going to go in the toilet, one over the kitchen, and then a double one, or pretty much the same sort of thing as double one. There's this one at the foot of the bed, and then over the head of the bed, just a sort of a bit more of a shallow, so same sort of like height and everything probably, but a bit more shallow, so I can sit up without smacking my head on it. But I do have experience of this because the Bursner had quite deep cupboards over your head, and you just kind of learn to get out of bed like that or whatever. So I'm not too fussed about that. So I'm trying to go for a compromise between having too much space and therefore too much top weight in lockers, etc., and everything you put inside them, not just the construction of them, but also the fiddliness of getting them in there and doing all that. So start on this one because it looks easier. Shouldn't have really said that, should I? The next phase is to pass on the dimensions of the sofa area, and then basically get the seats all recovered so they all match. There's no real urgency for that. but hopefully I'll get that done next few weeks. I say there's no urgency. Obviously there is kind of urgency, but the seats are functional now, so that's all right. A bit more storage in there so we can go away, that'd be great. And then help Mandy with a few jobs. I think I've got about 50 jobs actually on Mandy's van I need to do, so that's why I'm trying to get my van completed as possible, get Mandy's van done, and then obviously we go into the NEC motorhome show. Is it the Camping and Caravan Motorhome Show and Holiday Show, at the NEC show in February show, the show. I think that's the title of it anyway. But yeah, we're going to be there from Tuesday until Sunday ourselves, walking around having a shufty, because we've never been to this show at this time of year before. But at the My Rider stall, we're going to be there from 1 p.m. Sorry, from 11 p.m. till 1 p.m. Thursday, Friday and Saturday. So if you do actually kind of see us walking around, say hi. Otherwise, if you think, oh yeah, I want to go and see them, then Thursday, Friday and Saturday from 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. we'll be at the My Rider store, so you can come say hello then. And obviously they've got some new bike gear and stuff like that, things going on, so that should be quite exciting too. Right, but yeah, everything's done. Next week, get cracking on them lockers. And I will inform you about the electrical stuff that's gone on with EcoFlow as well. Yeah, that is for now just going to be a repair so I can get back on the road, and then we'll see what EcoFlow says about the whole situation, because it's probably a product recall, and that may well extend into all sorts of other issues then that happen, like compensation for having to rip the van apart and replace a cable that is installed inside the van. But we'll see how we get on with that one. For now, I want to say I need a beer, but I've not drunk beer in ages. Yeah, for now, crack on. Tidy up, dust. I need to dust in my van. I never thought I'd say that. It's full of dust. Workshop is a dusty place. Right, folks. What?
I can buy you some beer if you want some.
Mandy says she'll buy beer because then she'll have a beer buddy. And on that note, I'll catch you next time. Bye.